Welcome back to Change Your Life. Today, we're diving into the fascinating world of Jefferson Nickel value coins. In this video, we'll explore the worth, iconic design, hidden treasures, and shocking history behind the top 3 most valuable and expensive Jefferson Nickels in the United States of America. We'll be revealing coins from 1995p, 1992d, 1999p. These are copper nickel coins, featuring the classic Monticello reverse design, one of the most recognizable images in American coinage history. At first glance, these nickels may look completely ordinary. They might be dirty, worn, or heavily circulated, showing years of everyday use. But don't let their appearance fool you. Some of these seemingly common coins have rare errors, special conditions, or limited varieties that make them highly desirable to collectors. In the right condition, certain examples could be worth thousands or even more dollars today. So before you spend that old nickel sitting in your drawer, stick around, because you might be holding a hidden treasure in your hands. Backhand index pointing right first up. Coin number 1. Close your eyes and imagine something almost laughable. A 5-cent coin. A small, dull, heavily worn 1995 Jefferson nickel with a tiny P mint mark from Philadelphia. The kind of coin people drop on the ground and don't even bother to pick up. The kind of coin that sits forgotten in cup holders, dusty drawers, and old jars in the kitchen. It looks tired, scratched, dirty. Its edges softened by decades of use. The Monticello building on the reverse is faded, its steps barely visible from years of circulation. And yet, what if I told you that under the right circumstances, this tiny copper nickel coin could hold a story so powerful, so shocking, that collectors would fight to own it? What if that ordinary nickel in your pocket was not ordinary at all? The Jefferson nickel has always been underestimated. Introduced in 1938, it replaced the Buffalo nickel and carried the calm, intellectual presence of Thomas Jefferson on the front and his historic home, Monticello, on the back. By 1995, the design had become familiar, almost invisible to the American eye. Billions were produced over the decades, and Philadelphia struck massive quantities that year. It was a routine year. A normal year. Nothing flashy. No silver. No dramatic metal change. Just copper nickel, the standard alloy used for modern nickels. And yet, history teaches us something important. Sometimes the most routine years hide the most unexpected treasures. In 1995, the Philadelphia Mint produced millions upon millions of Jefferson Nickels for circulation. Most entered the economy quietly, doing their job without attention. But within those vast numbers, small variations can occur. Slight striking differences. Unusual pressure during minting. Subtle anomalies in lettering or surface texture. Tiny deviations that most people will never see. But collectors do. And when collectors notice something rare, something unusual, the market responds. Suddenly, a 5-cent coin becomes a conversation piece. Then it becomes an auction item. Then it becomes a legend. Now imagine a 1995p Jefferson nickel that has survived heavy circulation. It has traveled through fast food counters in the 1990s. It has sat in arcade machines. It has been dropped on concrete floors and picked up again. The dirt embedded in its surface is not just grime. It is proof of life. It is evidence that this coin was part of everyday America for decades. And survival matters. Because in the world of coins, survival combined with rarity creates demand. And demand creates value. The Monticello reverse design carries quiet symbolism. A building that represents history, stability, intellect. Even when worn, even when faded, it holds that identity. And when certain nickels show unusual sharpness in areas that should be worn, or display slight doubling in inscriptions, or carry rare striking characteristics, their value can climb dramatically. To the average person, it is just 5 cents. To the right buyer, it can be hundreds, thousands, and in extreme, rare cases, far more than anyone would expect from a nickel. Here is the psychological twist. People underestimate small denominations. They assume value must be large in size to be large in worth. But history has proven again and again that some of the smallest coins have delivered the biggest surprises. A heavily circulated nickel can still be desirable if it possesses something unique. Condition is important, yes. But uniqueness is powerful. If a 1995p nickel carries a rare feature, even hidden under years of wear, it becomes more than pocket change. It becomes opportunity. The copper-nickel composition itself tells a story. Durable. Resistant. Designed to survive decades in circulation. That durability means many 1995 nickels are still out there today. And somewhere among them, a few may stand apart. A slightly off-center strike. A subtle design irregularity. A rare characteristic that turns ordinary metal into a collector's prize. When the market recognizes something special, prices can rise fast. Not because the coin is magical, but because collectors compete. And competition drives astonishing numbers. Imagine discovering one. Sitting at a table under soft light. Examining the P mint mark. Studying Jefferson's profile. Looking closely at Monticello's steps. You realize something is different. Something rare. That moment of realization is electric. Because coins are not just metal. They are time capsules. They are economic artifacts. They are pieces of national history compressed into something you can hold between your fingers. And when one of those pieces turns out to be rare, its value becomes more than financial. It becomes symbolic. Now let's be realistic. Not every 1995p Jefferson nickel is worth millions. Most are still worth 5 cents. But the reason stories like this capture attention is because rare coins have shocked the world before. Ordinary coins have sold for extraordinary sums when they carried the right rarity. The right feature. The right condition. That is what fuels the dream. That is what keeps collectors searching rolls of nickels late at night. Because somewhere in the ordinary, the extraordinary can exist. So if you find a 1995 Jefferson nickel with a P mint mark, dirty, worn, heavily circulated, don't dismiss it instantly. Examine it carefully. Research it. Compare details. Because while most may remain common, a small number could carry something rare enough to command serious attention. And in the world of coin collecting, attention can turn into demand. Demand can turn into value. And value, sometimes, can change a life. In the end, this nickel represents something bigger than 5 cents. It represents possibility. It represents the idea that history hides in plain sight. That fortune can sometimes be small, quiet, and overlooked. The 1995p Jefferson nickel may look ordinary. It may feel ordinary. But in the right context, with the right rarity, it could become anything but ordinary. And that possibility alone is powerful enough to make people look twice at the change in their pockets. Hold a nickel in your hand. Just 5 cents. Small. Light. Ordinary. Now imagine that nickel is dated 1992, carrying a tiny D mint mark beneath the year, struck at the Denver Mint. It looks worn. Dirty. The surface scratched from years of movement through pockets, cash drawers, gas stations, grocery stores. Jefferson's face on the front is softened from circulation. The Monticello building on the reverse is faded, its fine steps nearly disappearing into the metal. At first glance, it feels worthless. Forgettable. But what if that exact coin, that heavily circulated 1992 D Jefferson Nickel, carried a story so powerful, so unexpected, that collectors would pay astonishing sums to own the right one? The Jefferson Nickel has always lived in the shadow of larger coins. Pennies get attention for their errors. Silver dollars command drama. Gold coins inspire headlines. But the nickel? Quiet. Humble. Underestimated. Since 1938, Thomas Jefferson's profile has appeared on the front, calm and composed. On the reverse, Monticello, his historic Virginia estate, stands as a symbol of American architecture and intellectual legacy. By 1992, this design had been in circulation for decades, so familiar that most Americans stopped seeing it at all. And that is where the opportunity hides, in what people stop noticing. In 1992, the Denver Mint produced millions of Jefferson Nickels. They were struck in copper-nickel alloy, durable and built for everyday use. Nothing flashy. No silver content. No gold. Just a standard 5-cent coin meant to move quietly through the economy. But here is what most people never consider: when coins are produced in massive quantities, tiny variations can slip through. Slight changes in strike pressure. Subtle alignment differences. Microscopic doubling in letters. Small irregularities that only sharp eyes detect. Most go unnoticed for years, sometimes decades, until collectors begin to look closer. Now imagine a 1992 D nickel that has survived heavy circulation. It has lived a full American life. It may have bought a newspaper in the 90s. Paid part of a vending machine snack. Sat in arcade machines, laundromats, parking meters. The dirt pressed into its surface is history. The wear on Jefferson's cheek is proof of movement. The softened edges are evidence of time. And yet, within that wear, there could be something rare. Something subtle. Something that transforms 5 cents into something far more powerful. Collectors understand something the average person does not. Value does not always scream. Sometimes it whispers. A rare die variety. A scarce striking anomaly. A limited production feature that was not widely recognized at the time of release. When the market discovers these things, attention grows. And when attention grows, demand follows. And when demand collides with rarity, prices can climb in ways that feel unreal. It is not about magic. It is about scarcity meeting desire. Think about the psychology behind it. Most people would never believe a nickel could be worth serious money. That disbelief is exactly what makes rare nickels so fascinating. Because when an ordinary coin shocks the market with unexpected value, it captures imagination. It creates headlines. It fuels the idea that hidden treasures still exist in plain sight. The 1992 D Jefferson Nickel fits perfectly into that narrative. It is common until it is not. It is overlooked until someone discovers something different about it. Monticello on the reverse adds to the symbolism. A building that represents stability, history, permanence. Even when worn, its structure remains. And in the coin world, structure matters. If certain details appear sharper than expected in a circulated piece, or if spacing between letters looks slightly unusual, collectors take notice. They study. They compare. They verify. And if confirmed as rare, that simple nickel moves into a different category entirely. Let's be realistic. Not every 1992 D Jefferson nickel is worth millions. Most are still worth face value. But history has shown that some modern coins, when discovered with the right rare characteristics, have sold for sums far beyond what anyone expected. That is why coin roll hunters search through boxes of nickels late at night. That is why collectors examine worn coins under magnification. Because the extraordinary does not always arrive shining. Sometimes it arrives dirty, scratched, and ignored. Imagine finding one in an old jar. You wipe it clean. You notice something unusual. The mint mark looks slightly different. The lettering spacing catches your attention. You compare it carefully. Your heart beats a little faster. Because in that moment, 5 cents becomes possibility. It becomes history. It becomes a potential doorway to something bigger. That is the thrill that keeps the coin world alive. The copper-nickel composition ensures these coins survive for decades. That durability means 1992 D nickels are still circulating today. And that means the search is not over. Somewhere, perhaps in a forgotten drawer, perhaps in loose change at a gas station, there could be one carrying a rare feature waiting to be recognized. And recognition is everything. Because once a rare variety is confirmed, its value is no longer determined by denomination, it is determined by collector demand. In the end, the 1992 D Jefferson Nickel is a reminder. A reminder that small things should never be underestimated. That history hides in everyday objects. That value is not always visible at first glance. It may not make you a billionaire overnight. But in the right circumstances, with the right rarity, it could become far more than 5 cents. And that possibility, quiet, subtle, powerful, is enough to make anyone look twice at the change in their pocket. Take a deep breath, and imagine holding a simple 5-cent coin. A 1999 Jefferson Nickel. A small P mint mark beneath the year, meaning it was struck in Philadelphia. The surface is dull. Scratched. Maybe even stained from years of circulation. Jefferson's face looks slightly worn. The Monticello building on the reverse has lost some of its sharp lines. It feels ordinary. Almost forgettable. And yet, what if this small copper-nickel coin carried a story powerful enough to shock collectors? What if the nickel most people ignore could quietly hold extraordinary potential? The Jefferson Nickel has always lived in silence compared to flashier coins. No silver shine. No golden glow. Just copper and nickel fused together, durable and practical. Since 1938, Thomas Jefferson's portrait has represented intellect and stability, while Monticello stands proudly on the reverse as a symbol of American heritage. By 1999, this design was deeply familiar, almost invisible to the public eye. Millions were produced that year at the Philadelphia Mint. They flowed into everyday commerce without ceremony. But history teaches us something important. Sometimes the most common years hide the most surprising secrets. In 1999, America was on the edge of a new millennium. The economy was shifting. Technology was booming. The U.S. Mint was producing coins in enormous quantities to meet circulation demand. Among them were the 1999 P. Jefferson Nickels, copper-nickel-clad coins built to survive decades of handling. Most entered circulation and did exactly what they were meant to do, move quietly from hand to hand. But within large production runs, subtle differences can appear. Slight variations in striking pressure. Minor design inconsistencies. Tiny anomalies so small that most people would never notice them without magnification. Now imagine a heavily circulated 1999 P nickel. It may have paid for coffee in the early 2000s. It may have sat in arcade machines. It may have rattled around in car consoles for years. Every scratch is a memory. Every worn edge is proof of survival. Dirt pressed into the lettering is not just grime, it is time itself embedded in metal. And while most of these nickels remain worth face value, a small number could carry rare characteristics that elevate them into collector interest. Here is where the psychology becomes powerful. People underestimate small denominations. 5 cents feels insignificant. That assumption creates opportunity. Because when a low-value coin reveals a rare feature, the shock factor multiplies. Collectors love the unexpected. A rare die variety. An unusual doubling in inscriptions. A subtle minting irregularity that slipped through unnoticed in 1999. When such a coin is discovered and authenticated, its value is no longer tied to 5 cents. It becomes tied to scarcity. Monticello on the reverse holds symbolic weight. A structure rooted in American history, representing permanence and design precision. When certain nickels display sharper than expected architectural details despite wear, or show spacing anomalies in the lettering, specialists begin to pay attention. The coin becomes studied, compared, verified. And if confirmed as scarce, demand grows. And when demand grows, prices follow. Let's stay grounded in reality. Not every 1999 P. Jefferson nickel is worth thousands or millions. The vast majority remain common circulation coins. But history in the coin world has proven something fascinating. Modern coins, once thought ordinary, have surprised markets before. It is rarity, not age alone, that drives extraordinary value. And rarity can hide anywhere, even inside a coin struck during a seemingly routine year like 1999. Imagine searching through rolls of nickels. You find one dated 1999 with the P mint mark. You examine Jefferson's profile under light. You inspect the steps of Monticello carefully. You compare spacing, lettering, alignment. Suddenly, you notice something unusual. Something slightly different from the others. That moment, that spark of discovery, is what fuels collectors. Because sometimes, that difference is what transforms a coin from change into opportunity. The copper-nickel alloy itself plays a role in this story. Its durability means these coins survive long after paper currency wears out. That is why 1999 nickels are still circulating today. That is why the search continues. Somewhere, perhaps in an old jar or forgotten drawer, a rare variety may still exist unnoticed. And in the world of collectibles, discovery is everything. The idea of becoming a billionaire overnight from a nickel sounds dramatic. And in truth, extreme claims should always be approached with caution. But the deeper truth remains powerful: rare coins have changed financial circumstances before. Not because they were magical, but because they were scarce, verified, and desired by serious collectors willing to pay premium prices. So if you come across a 1999 Jefferson nickel with a P mint mark, dirty, worn, heavily circulated, do not immediately dismiss it. Study it. Learn about it. Understand what makes certain coins valuable beyond their face value. Because while most will remain 5 cents, a small fraction could carry characteristics that elevate them into something far more meaningful. In the end, this coin represents possibility. A reminder that value is not always obvious. That history lives in small objects. That even a worn nickel can carry a story bigger than itself. The 1999 P. Jefferson nickel may look simple. It may feel insignificant. But sometimes, within the ordinary, lies something extraordinary waiting for the right eyes to see it.